Hello and welcome back to Time Under Tension. Happy New Year's Eve. Last day of the year. And I don't know about you, but 2024 has been a challenging year. It's also been one of the most rewarding years of my life. And I've grown and learned more this year than so many other years combined that I honestly wouldn't change anything. There are things that I definitely could see in myself that caused a little bit of that cringe, which is that space between where I am and where I want to be. But that's informative. And as you know, and reviewing our episodes from the last few sessions, probably very clear that I am all for New Year's goals and the fresh start that a new year brings. I love taking time to set goals. I plan to spend my evening planning out my goals and creating a vision for this year. But as I've kind of anticipated this day and recording this episode in accordance with that excitement, I've been paying attention to the themes that have come up in my own learnings. And I find that when I set my focus on something, I start to learn things from the outside, whether that certain themes come up in my readings or in videos that I'm watching or things that people around me are saying. And I really take note of that, not as a distraction, because that'll happen sometimes where you'll fix your eyes on something and then you'll meet resistance externally that will be distracting. And it's essentially, you could tie it back to the original sin in the garden where it's like, did God really tell you that? And I think about that. Like when you set a goal, there's often a lot that comes up about questioning that goal. Are you sure that's what you want to do? Are you really sure that's what you're supposed to do? And it's important to recognize that that's happening and to face it head on and say, yep, I know what I'm doing. Even the doubt, the unsureness, the fear of the unknown, even though all of that's just pummeling me right now, I'm not going to allow it to knock me down because I know what I want. I'm going to stay focused on that. Even if people around me don't understand, or even with good intentions are somehow sabotaging me through their lack of support or questioning. Instead, it presents opportunities for me to re-solidify my goals because I can say, no, I am sure of what I want. But on the other hand, I think there's an interesting thing that happens when you set your eyes on something where if you kind of in alignment with manifestation, think about what you want, and then you open yourself to what you're drawing into your life, you'll start to recognize certain themes. Certain tools will present themselves. People will present you with opportunities. Someone will drop a wisdom bomb that will just light you up in your intuition, and you'll know, oh, I need to hold on to that. Like, that's interesting. So, a couple of things have come up as I've been thinking about setting goals for New Year's and thinking, how can I do this year even better than the years before? A lot of this year, the reason that it was so growth oriented was not so much about the goals that I set at the beginning of the year, because honestly, a lot of those I did not reach, but it was about the intentionality with which I went into the year. And more than anything, the continual recommitment to becoming a better me every single day. Now, at first, I thought that that would look like achieving these certain goals, hitting these certain milestones. And that's what feels good to say, okay, by the end of Q1, I'm going to hit this goal. And maybe that works for a business, but that doesn't always work in our personal lives because so much happens that is unpredictable and out of our control. And if we start to see it as working against us versus understanding that everything that happens is presented as an opportunity to allow us to grow into that person that we're trying to become, we get distracted from the fact that these things are serving us, and then we can miss the opportunity for growth that lies within them. So as I go into this next year, I'm really trying to shift my mindset from just being goal oriented and that there's certain milestones that I want to hit by certain times in the year or by the end of the year, and instead thinking, how do I want to show up? Who do I want to be? How do I want to go to bed feeling at the end of every day? When I think about my health goals, how do I want to feel in my body? When I think about my fitness goals, what do I want to be able to do with my body? And then based on that, What do I need to start practicing? What do I need to focus on? What do I need to work on? What are the areas in which I'm weak or need growth? Or in my relationships, it's not about like, let me find a new perfect relationship. It's like, let me become the kind of person who is going to attract the right kind of person and also have the discernment to know whether or not someone is the right person. It's all about who you are becoming. So then once you set those intentions about who you are becoming, you have to move forward with more of an openness. Yes, a daily dedication to those commitments that you made, but not so much that the commitments are an end in and of themselves, but that you showing up and sticking to your commitments is what's developing the character that you'll need to be the kind of person who can embody those bigger goals that you're setting. I know that I haven't reached my big life goals or some of them because I'm not yet the kind of person who can sustain those goals. But I also know that I'm being developed and that I am moving forward proactively to become the kind of person who can sustain those goals and live in that lifestyle. So that's kind of how I've been conceptualizing it lately. But two themes that have been coming up consistently as I've been thinking about going into goal setting with a wiser, more mature mindset. One is consistency. That has been a huge theme throughout this year. It's so easy to set goals at the beginning of the year and to say, okay, every day this year, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to read for an hour, or I'm going to take a 10-minute walk every morning, or I'm going to read the Bible in the year, or I'm going to text a friend every day, or I'm going to grow my social media following to this amount, or post this many times in a day. Okay, so you can set goals like that. The problem with that mindset when it's super limiting is if you miss a day, it can feel like you lost all momentum. Can feel extremely disempowering because you made this overarching commitment that I will show up and do this every single day. The way to like mature that mindset is to say, is to continue on with that commitment, but to continue on with taking the next right step. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to become the kind of person who can do that every single day. Now, things will happen. You'll wake up really sick one day, or you'll wake up and someone broke into your car and you got to deal with that. And now that threw your whole routine off, and you were going to go to the gym and that was your commitment, but now you got to deal with this. And like, there's actually no way around dealing with this thing. And so you're having to compromise your goals, and that feels icky too. And right. And then we go down this whole spiral of self defeat because we think, oh, life just never lets me reach my goals. It's saying, okay, these are the circumstances that are being put in front of me right now because this actually was what I needed today to continue developing my character, which may be different than every other day where I'm going to show up and do the things that I said I was going to do. Today, it may look different because I have a new challenge. There's a boss I'm facing today, and this becomes the most important thing. But the next step that I will take will be in alignment with my goals and showing up in this situation as the kind of person that I want to be. So continuing on with that example, it's like, okay, I have a goal to run a mile every morning, for instance. It's like you go outside to run a mile and you realize someone broke into your car. Well, shoot, I need to call the police. I need to deal with this. I'm going to be late for work. Now I have to take care of this thing. Now you're at a divide because do you go and try to complete this goal that you set that was like in the circumstances that everything's goes according to plan, I will go run a mile. But now the circumstances are anything but according to plan, and I need to deal with this thing. What do I do? And it's like return to a commitment that makes sense because you're a mature, developed adult. It's like, okay, right now, this is the most important thing that I have to deal with. So instead of getting frustrated about it, thinking, how do I want to show up right now? It's like, okay, I feel very emotional. I feel very overwhelmed. Let me ground myself. Let me say, okay, what can I control? I'm going to show up with grace. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to trust that all things are working out for good. And that's the kind of person that I'm going to be as I show up in this situation to this particular challenge that's been planted in my life in order for me to grow. I will choose to grow through this, and that's how I will choose to move forward. And then tonight after work, I will go run a mile. Or tomorrow I will get right back on track with my running a mile. And then it's taking that next right step and honoring that commitment and understanding that it's okay if the commitment needs to be adjusted, but not overall, and not to the effect that if you miss one day, that disrupts your progress overall. It's about how many points can you score for your team, not did you score them all in a row without ever, the other team ever scoring a point. That would be a ridiculous mindset as an athlete. It's like, okay, we'll just keep scoring and keep scoring, but then as soon as the other team scores, like, we give up. No, you have to be able to wipe your brain, refocus, and get the next goal. And so that's what it's about when you're pursuing goals, is like, you make these commitments not in and of themselves to be perfect, but so that you become the kind of person who can uphold their commitments, knowing also that the commitments themselves are tailored towards your bigger goals. So running a mile a day might be tailored towards wanting to improve your HRV, or to run a 5K in August. Like, you might have a bigger goal and you've broken it down into those daily goals, and that's why the day-to-day goal makes sense. But it also makes sense because having that commitment is allowing you to become the kind of person who can reach those bigger goals. But also, you have to trust that when things get interrupted, that they are doing so in order for you to grow and to exercise these things that you've been practicing developing. You might be running every day as kind of a side goal to develop discipline, to develop endurance, to develop focus, to develop commitment and confidence. So now you're being presented with this situation in which a lot of that is threatened. Your car was broken into, you feel stressed out, your things were taken. That shakes your confidence and your sense of security. You feel very emotional about it. Oh, remember this goal that you've set? It's for you to develop your character, to become someone who is patient, who has endurance, who has trust, who's focused, who's disciplined. And now you can apply those skills that you've been developing through this daily commitment to this specific situation. That's the point. You are developing those skills in order to show up to the challenges and opportunities of life with a stronger, more developed, and tailored skill set. So remember that the things that seem to present themselves as challenges are actually meant to test you and to allow you to practice integrating and embodying those skills that you're developing through the daily practices that you're showing up to every single day. So as you move forward and maybe spend the evening thinking about what you want to accomplish for this year, I want you to apply that mindset to it. Sure, set your goals for the year. Think about, okay, based on those goals, what are the daily commitments I need to make? Make them low bar. I read something the other day that was like, you need to like stop writing while it's still good. Like, you don't want to write everything that you write until you have nothing left to say. Like, stop writing while you're still in the middle of good writing. You want to kind of leave some on the table. So say ideally would love to run 3 miles every day. Well, that's not the place to start. What if you said, I will run for 5 minutes? If you haven't run at all, or you haven't been running for a long time, starting with a 5-minute goal is a great place to start. It may feel like undershooting, but it's not so much about the distance as it is about developing the habit and starting to become the kind of person who gets up and runs every single day. And there's a lot of really amazing strategies like this in the book Atomic Habits, and I would highly recommend, whether you have read it or have not, to go reread it or read it for the first time, as there are a lot of really great tangible tools for developing habits, which can be helpful as you move into the new year and think about what you need to do from day to day to achieve your big goals and to establish the systems you need to move towards those goals. But also think about, when those things come up, how you're going to move forward. When something comes up to interrupt your process, how are you going to address it? How do you want to show up? What kind of person do you want to be? And how will you recommit with consistency to the things that you originally committed to? Even if you get interrupted, even if you have to push it to tomorrow or later today, or you do it at 10 p.m. because it's something that you promised to yourself and you're going to get it done, even if it's later in the day because that's just what happened today. Like, what does it mean to you to stay committed? And I will tell you, whether it's to do it tonight at 10 p.m. or to do it tomorrow, Some level of commitment means being able to get back on track when you fall off, because it will inevitably happen. And when we are realistic about the fact that we will fail, and honestly, we need to fail, which is the other point that's been coming up a lot in my reflections, then you're able to move forward with wisdom and knowing, okay, this isn't about being perfect. This is about recognizing that there will be times when I fall, and also having a game plan for how I will continue to proceed when I fall. We have to fail. If we're not failing, we're not learning. There was an Andrew Huberman podcast where he talked about like the rate of failure. And it's like, you need to be failing like 30% of the time if you want to be growing. That's a heck of a lot of time. And that always is very encouraging to me when I'm struggling through developing a new skill or learning something new or starting a new job. It's like, oh, good. I should be failing or else I'm not being challenged enough. And I shouldn't be failing more than 30% consistently, or it's probably too hard and I've set the goal too high. So if you find that you're okay, you started this week with this goal to run a mile every single day, and you were able to do it 3 days this week. Okay, maybe that's a little too much of a stretch. Let's bump it down to I will run for 8 minutes every day. Maybe it's a little less than a mile. So I'll run for 8 minutes every day. Then implement that. Cool. I did that 5 days this week. Awesome. You're right on track. You're right on track with that trajectory. You're not perfect. You're not nailing it every single day. You're failing a couple times, which is good because you have room to grow. And then when you start hitting that every single day for like 3 weeks on end, okay, time to ramp it up. Let's go to 10 minutes or let's take it back up to the mile. Oh, good. I added the mile and now I'm doing it 5 days a week. Good. I'm failing at a good rate here. So that's how you need to be able to use that tool. We become a slave to our goals because we're unwilling to do the reflection necessary to understand why failure is happening and to use that information to adjust course, to get realistic about our limitations and our abilities at this point, and to also hold ourselves accountable to continue to grow and to grow into the kind of person who can sustain those goals. So I hope that this gave you some things to reflect on as you look to setting goals for the new year. I would love to hear about your specific goals. If you want to comment below, if you're watching this on YouTube, DM me. I'm happy to share your goals. I think it's so cool to be able to put it out there in the world and say, hey, this is what I'm committing to. Yes, even if that changes, this isn't about inspiring shame. It's about saying, okay, this is what I'm committed to doing. And I understand that I have to be reflective, that I have to be realistic, and that I also have to be the kind of person who is willing to show up and recommit day in and day out, even when it feels like a slog, even when I feel like I'm failing, and even to be able to see those failures as learning points, as necessary for my growth. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. Thank you for all of your support this year. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. I want to keep growing this channel and also just tailoring it to support you and what you're trying to achieve. It's my goal to help support you to achieve your goals and to work with your body and mind to have a happy, healthier life where you can trust yourself to achieve the things that you want to do, but also to be able to tap into the accountability that you need to find support externally for reaching those goals and becoming the kind of person that you want to be. I think there's plenty for all of us in this world, and we can grow so much more through community than we could ever do so on our own. I'm so happy to be able to just pour into your life a little bit, some of the things that I've learned over my time as a nurse, as a bodybuilder, as a health coach, and hopefully that is helpful for you and helps support you in your journey and who you are becoming. I love you all. Please have a wonderful, safe night and happy New Year's Eve.